Hello, good evening everyone, and welcome to another episode of FPL Sunday with David Munday. Yes, it still rhymes. Yes, we're still using it, despite the fact that every week someone gets in touch to suggest a different arrangement of the words Sunday and Monday. This week on Twitter, Penfold says, "Why is your show not called Sunday Monday?" Well, I will feed that up the chain to Az and the rest of the guys at Fantasy Football Scout and see what they say. If you have any other alternative names for this show that include the words include the words Monday and Sunday, we'd love to hear them because, as I said, every single week, to use the words of a former football manager, we get these comments. So please get in touch with some more. Now, if you've not watched the show before, which may be some of you because due to some unforeseen circumstances, had to cancel last week's episode. Apologies about that. We are back. And I'd say better than ever before if I was an overly confident person, but I've had a little bit of an average game week, so I won't say it's going to be better than ever, but at the very least we are back. As I said, if you've not watched the show before, then this is just an opportunity for fantasy managers at the end of a game week to come here, tell us what went down for them. Did they have a good week, bad week? Maybe moan if things went wrong. Gloat if things went right. We're absolutely happy to showcase things going right. Do not be afraid of gloating here. Of course, if there's also any talking points you want us to talk about, then chuck those in the chat as well. Seeing a lot of people already asking about wildcard as well, which is interesting. It's been a very, very interesting week for the template, that's for certain. And certainly going to be looking at some of the options or some of the players that are on that to see what their hopes of continuing their good form or their bad form are in the coming weeks. So, as I said, if you've got any alternative names for this show that involve the words Sunday and Monday, drop those in the comments. As I said, we get those every week, so always happy to hear those. And if you've got any tales of woe or tales of delight, please tell us those too, and we will read those out. Now, before we get to some of those, and before we get to my team, as ever, we're going to start with what's been going down in the community, and a good place to always check that is, of course, on FPL Twitter, where most of the carnage tends to take place. Now, we're going to start this week's banter roundup, so to speak, with Liverpool. And it doesn't get more banterous than both Alexander-Arnold and Robertson coming off, according to the FPL account, 99 seconds before getting those clean sheets. Wow. It's the stuff that I'd say dreams are made of, but probably only for managers who like injecting people, I guess, is their dream. Because most people have got TAA. We've been waiting for Liverpool clean sheets for so long, and they finally get one, and the people that we need on the pitch aren't on the pitch. If that doesn't sum up FPL, I don't know what does. So if you had Alexander-Arnold, I'm hoping that's most of you, tell us. If you had Alexander-Arnold and Robertson as well, let us know, and let us know what your feeling is on Liverpool defence. I've got some information on them moving forward later in the show, so if you want to stick around for some advice on what to do with your Liverpool defenders, then this is the place to be. We've already got J77 Lag who's got in touch with his alternative name for the show, which is Fun Day on a Sunday with Munday. I quite like that one. It kind of sounds like it would be, I don't know, sort of like a kids game show on ITV in the 90s. I'll take that. Nuclear Atom says Trent will be inducted into the FPL General's 59th minute club this week. Absolutely right there. If anyone saw on Twitter, I think FPL General said that what happened was when both of those defenders came off in the 59th minute, his phone exploded with notifications. It just kept pinging. He thought it was incredibly popular. Well, what actually happened was you just had loads of people getting in touch to fuel his next podcast. Haiku News says certain FPL bubble managers gloat way too much on Twitter. Well, there hasn't been too much of that this week because the template's had a bad game week, so maybe this is the week to be on Twitter, I guess. Although I enjoy it at the best of times. When it's at its best and at its worst, it's a good place to get a good litmus test of how everyone is feeling. So as I said, a lot of frustration about Liverpool defence, a good place to start. Now, what else have people been talking about? Well, it's not just FPL managers that go on Twitter to talk about FPL. Sometimes FPL players, and I really love this one from Ivan Toney. He obviously got a hat-trick in Brentford's win on Saturday, and of course I think it was something like 400,000 managers had got rid of him, and he kind of seemingly reacted to that in a sort of Michael Jordan kind of way, took it personally. Right, and has obviously banged in a hat-trick. And not only has he done his talking on the pitch, he's done his talking off the pitch as well. Love to see this. I love it when anyone actually involved in FPL actually breaks the so-called fourth wall, actually ventures forth with an FPL opinion, and he came out onto Twitter to say, massive win, happy to get a hat-trick and big 3 points on to the next. Oh, and you guys that took me out your fantasy team, how you like me now? And for the benefit of anyone listening to this rather than watching it, he included 2 sunglasses emojis and then 2 crying with laughter emojis. So just want to give you that extra flavour there. He really, really enjoyed that one. And I mean, it's a conversation topic, to be honest, that we're going to come back to in a minute, because FPL forwards really, really have been... They've been, I guess, the theme of this game week, and annoyingly, we're only allowed 3 of them. And so many people want Tony, and so many people want Mitrovic and Haaland, and, well, as I said, we'll get into that in a little bit later, but it's a decent segue. Someone, we've already got people correcting me. I love it when this happens. Please get in touch if I've made a mistake. Yes, Shani Russell says, David, just to clarify, Robbo didn't start. You're absolutely right. I actually missed this game because I was coming back from stuff I was doing in the morning, and I completely forgot. You're absolutely right. Robbo didn't start the game. He came on in the 59th minute. Either way, still some irony and still just a 1-pointer. So if you had both of those players, you still sat there with 1 point. Deeply frustrating. Thank you for the correction. Happy to admit I got that one wrong. If I say anything else wrong, please let me know and I will read it out. Don't worry. Nuclear Atom says, Tony's comment was class. I never had him in my team, but I at least had him in my draft team. Well done. It's good to have him somewhere. Moving on then, another conversation topic. Here we go. This is what I was talking about, the forwards. Erling Haaland, basically a cheat code at this point, right? Or it depends how you look at it. Either he's a cheat code or he effectively rings, the death knell for captaincy. Because if we all just captain him every week, it might as well not be a captaincy anymore. Now, we're going to talk about this a bit later in terms of what happens with Man City's rotation. But at the moment, this man is so hungry for goals that he gets so frustrated when the ball doesn't come to him, because he doesn't really touch the ball that often. And when he does touch the ball, he tends to score. So tweet that we've got here for the benefit of anyone listening is a picture of Tom from Tom and Jerry doing his kind of screwed up face like a smacked arse face with Erling Haaland's hair on it. Looks uncannily familiar with the caption, Erling Haaland when Kyle Walker didn't square the ball for him to tap it in. That is the sort of anger that he's playing with right now. Well, not anger, hunger, I suppose. He's a fantastic fantasy asset. I guess we don't really need to go into too much detail on that. We will talk about his rotation possibility a bit later. And if you have any opinions on that, do just let us know. A nice comment from George Wade, who says, the name of the show is good, and has given us a smiley face, so maybe we don't need to change it. But as I said, keep your alternative show names coming in. So this is what I was looking for. This was a tweet I was looking for, is what FPL managers want right now, according to Fantasypedia. This is one of the accounts on Twitter. And it's a fantasy lineup where we've got Sanchez in goal. It's photoshopped, obviously, because he couldn't do this in the actual game. Sanchez in goal, Cancelo in defence, Martinelli in midfield, and then Darwin, Mitrovic, Tony, Haaland, Jesus, and Kane all as the front line. And it really has felt like that this week, because basically everyone's forwards have done something for the most part. We'll have a look at my team in a minute, and all 3 of my forwards got me... Oh, sorry, actually, only 2 of my forwards got me something, but came close with one of them, and one of them is highly owned. So, it's difficult to move them on. Right now, which forwards do we go for? Well, if they're all working, maybe we don't need to change around too much. But if you've got some opinions on which forwards you think are more, dare I say it, essential than the others, then let us know in the comments. We're going to have a look at some stats in a bit to work out which of those ones are the ones to go for. But it is desperately annoying when there's so many players you want, but you can only have 3 of them. To Adrian Richardson, who says, why are you narrating pictures? Well, some people like to listen to this instead of watching it. So maybe they're in the car, or maybe they're doing the washing up, or, I don't know, doing some chore that means they can't actually look at the screen. And of course, we have podcast listeners too. So I know that's annoying for the people who can see stuff, and I'm explaining it to you. It's a little bit like match of the day analysis, like they're telling you the stuff you can see. But we always get decent feedback whenever we help out the podcast listeners and those listening rather than watching. So unfortunately for you, we will carry on doing that. Sorry about that. Our final tweet this week then is, let's be honest. Ward-Iverson double up, I think, has been kind of dead in the water for some time. I've said many a time that the Iverson ward is the section of the hospital that we will end up when this backfires, and every week it does. So we basically all just set up our mortgages there. This picture here is of a man just laying down, having a smoke, whilst thousands of other people just go about their business, get on with their lives. sums up Ward's involvement as an FPL asset at this point. The rest of most people's teams are at least making some effort. Every week it's just 1 point or 0 points from Danny Ward, and an especially terrible performance from him today against Brighton. Entirely possible that we end up with maybe Iverson in goal for Leicester next time, possibly with a new manager. We will have to see. We'll have to see on that one. As promised, here is my team with that man, Danny Ward, there. 2 points this week, which is actually, dizzy heights. Thanks for that, Danny. Goes a long way, I think. But yeah, the real frustration is that defence for me. I think nothing. I mean, I talked earlier on about things that sum up FPL. For me, what sums up FPL for my team this week, especially, is that I've been waiting for weeks to start Neco Williams. I'm operating on not big at the back, as has been mentioned a couple of times on the show this year. It's not really for me. Never has been. Probably never will be either. So I had Alexander-Arnold and Diaz, and then I've been rotating Patterson, Botman, and Williams through that other slot. And I was so excited to finally actually start Neco Williams because he's looked so good so far. Just needed it to be the right fixture so that Forrest wouldn't, concede maybe 3 goals or something. But that's exactly what they did. And the funny thing is that finally, in the week when I start him, Botman and Patterson, my two alternatives, still outscored him anyway with 6 points each because both Newcastle and Everton kept a clean sheet. Now, in my defence, I think when you look at the balance of play of both of those games that Newcastle and Everton played, of course, you got to say there was fortuitous elements to them keeping a clean sheet, or in the case of one of those teams, they had Nick Pope. So, I mean, I'm not frustrated by the decision, just frustrated by the outcome, which is usually what happens in FPL. Is the outcome is what is what causes the problems rather than the decision. Sometimes it's a decision too, and I've made some bad ones of those as well. But in this case, well, he got his assist, and we will take it, and we move to the next game week. Now, other things about my team that I'm slightly happier about: 52 points, as I said, is actually no, it's okay. I'll take it. It's not exciting. It's a green arrow up to about 1 million, which I'll take at this stage of the season. It's really nice to. I mean, a lot of people are frustrated they didn't own Trossard and McAllister, right, for this Leicester game that Brighton have played, and Brighton have obviously put 5 goals past them. The thing is, at this point, McAllister and Trossard aren't tremendously well owned to the point that I'm frustrated that I don't have them. And so I said, for the benefit of people listening, my two Brighton attackers are Gross and March, and I got 5 points from each. And actually, in a game week where actually not many people have done that well, 10 points from those two is actually pretty good. Like, I'll take that. I think it's possible that Gross missed out on an assist for something that was disallowed. March obviously keeps going close. I mean, every time I watch Brighton, he has a couple of chances and looks decent. So Gross is a bit of a stat pick for me. March is a bit of an eye test pick for me. And I actually nearly changed him to Aronson for Leeds, and I'm glad I didn't do that now, because obviously that would have cost me, I think, 3 points. And in a week like this, 3 points goes a long way. Salah and Martinelli blanking for me in midfield, but I'm not. I mean, I'm frustrated by Salah, but we'll come on to him a bit later. But the thing is that in a week when I didn't captain him, some people did, I'll take that. And so then up front, I was talking earlier on about the forward situation, very tricky to navigate at the moment. Haaland, obviously my captain, 9 points for him, so that's 18 points for him in total. What's quite funny is I was deliberating over Haaland and Kane before the deadline for the captaincy, mainly, just purely because of the slight fear of rotation from Haaland. And of course, he started the game anyway. And much ado about nothing in the end, because literally both Kane and Haaland both scored 9 points. So that's really nice as well, that I had a decision I was really stuck on. And to be honest, I went Haaland just because I'm a coward. And thankfully, I wasn't punished for my cowardice, which is great. It's like the opposite of a Game of Thrones episodes where I was a coward and somehow didn't die. So yeah, that's my team at the moment. Just the one transfer I made. So I had two free banked, and I only used one. So I've got 2 again for next week. In terms of, I'm thinking I maybe need to get rid of Botman. May get rid of Salah. We'll have to see. But relatively happy with my team so far. Being ranked 1 million in the world after game week 6 isn't too bad, and I've not used my wild card yet, and I don't hate my team, which is good place to be in. The Raven Effect said he got 59 points this week, so he's happy enough. Abdullah Shakat says, anyone over 75 points this week? I'm hoping that's because he got over 75 points. If he didn't, then I'm sorry. If you did get over 75 points, please tell us. Heike New says he got 41 points. I saw a few people near the beginning say they got around. Oh, I've just spotted a 77 points in the chat. That's exciting. Who was that? That was Abdullah. He got 77 points. His game week rank was 41k. That's incredible. Well done, Dan Gosling. I wonder if that is the professional football player Dan Gosling. If it is, let us know. 8.9 million game week rank this week. I think it was 33 points for him, 39 points for the Scrambler 28, 38 points for David Lubenstein. Kativ who got 53, so sort of in my area. Bryce got 73 points. Well done to you. That's incredible. I mean, like, when everyone has a rough game week and you have an incredible one, that is amazing. Your green arrow is going to be huge. John Tyner had his lowest, I'm guessing ever, or maybe at least of the season, of 31 points. He's gutted. Completely understand that feeling. Brian with 35 points. George with 38. Rayan with 34. So, yeah, I mean, wow. Yeah, really, really tough game week. I'm guessing that probably means that lots of people have some questions. And thankfully, we will have some time to talk about those later. And also, the thing about this show, it's not just about getting your opinion. It's about analysing the games as they've just finished as well. So, hopefully, what we have a look at from the games that have taken place in Game Week 6. Hopefully it might answer some of the questions that you do have. So, moving on then. Every week I do this plug and you're probably sick of it, and I don't care. I don't care that people are sick of me plugging this, because scout notes on the Fantasy Football Scout website are incredible. They are written by Neil and Tom, the editor and deputy editor of Fantasy Football Scout, and what they do, instead of looking at all the match of the day talking points, they look at the stuff that's really, really relevant to FPL. So how well this player's done, what position this player's playing in, what impact this player could have on this player, on their defence, all that sort of stuff. Heavily detailed, lots of data from the Fantasy Football Scout members area. And if you are making sure that you're reading these every week, you are going to have just the best awareness of everything going on in FPL to help you make the right decisions. And so every week, I like to just take people through the key talking points that come out of those. And the thing about Scout Notes sometimes is, so I used to write them actually when I was the editor at Fantasy Football Scout. This was something I used to do, and of course that was something that I got from Mark, the great Mark Sutherland. He's the one who invented this concept, passed it on to me, and then I passed it on to Neil as well. Writing these, reading these, when you've had a bad game week, sometimes these can be really helpful, because if you've had a game week where a number of your players haven't done well, and you're feeling frustrated that they haven't done well, you end up going back and you have a look at their performance, the performance of your players in a bit more detail, and with a bit of an opinion as well. Then it sometimes puts you at ease, and you go, oh, actually, he didn't bang this week, but maybe he will next week. Or maybe it helps you come to terms with the fact that you do need to sell that player, because once again, they're playing in the wrong position or whatever. So I always find that digesting this information, basically as the game week is finished, tends to put me in a calmer place for decision making right at the beginning of the week. And then it means by the time I actually make my decisions later in the week, because I don't really like early transfers, then I've already had several days to sort of settle, mind sort of settled over the information. So I think it's really important that we look at these on a Sunday night when the games are just finished. And the handy thing is there's no Monday night game this week, so we've got most of what we need all in one place. So as I said, if you want some light reading material tonight when this video is done, or if you need something, if you commute on Monday morning, head over to Fantasy Football Scout and have a look at the Scout notes. So the place we're going to start in terms of the specific games this week is going to be Chelsea. Now, a lot of people saying in the chat that Big at the back is dead, and Big at the back is having a tough time right now. Well, yes, I mean, one of the main reasons for that is Chelsea, where the defenders there just not offering what we want at all. Deeply frustrating if you own those. Although I present this without comment. I'm not trying to brag here. I've not owned a Chelsea player all season, so this is kind of useful that this is happening to them. It helps me get a bit of an advantage. Anyone else who hasn't got a Chelsea defender. But if you have a Chelsea defender, then I appreciate this is a tough time for you, difficult time, decisions to be made. Now, the first thing I would say before we go into any of the details here is probably obvious at this point that no, maybe it's not obvious. I don't want to be too opinionated, but I mean, a Chelsea double up at this point, defensively, I should say, is looking quite dicey. It is looking quite dicey, and one of the reasons why is because they just keep giving up so many chances. I'm trying to think where they ranked for big chances conceded, because it was 2 weeks ago we last did an episode of this. They were definitely in the bottom 4 or 5. Well, they're still there. have conceded 16 big chances over the first 6 game weeks, which is actually a massive number when you consider the stature of a club like Chelsea. And when you think of the defensive personnel they have on the books there, I mean, I think, they've not had the best pre-season, in terms of losing Rudiger, and of course Koulibaly's obviously had his sending off. That doesn't help either. Have to sign Fofana, maybe that'll make a difference. But right now, it's just getting really difficult to say this is a team that you're expecting to get clean sheets from. I'm the sort of person who, when I look at my expensive defenders, I need them really to be in a team that's pretty assured for clean sheets. I mean, I'm already thinking about selling Trent. I actually downgraded from Cancelo to Diaz 2 game weeks ago. Bit me a little bit, but Man City, not keeping clean sheets as often as they like. So if I was sat with 2 Chelsea defenders, I would definitely be looking at moving one of them on. And of course, the tricky thing is just, we always get this with Tuchel. We don't know who's going to start games in some positions. Reece James, I think, is a little bit more assured. He's a more versatile player, so he could play on the right-hand side of a back three, although, of course, that's not ideal. Of course, he can play as a right wing-back. Does exceptionally well there. Can't deny that. But Ben Chilwell seems to have come into the conversation and really complicated things. And before the comments scooch up a lot, I'm going to make sure I read this out from Addison Chang, is that Fofana is 4.4 million. So that is a good price. I mean, that is the kind of price I would be willing to pay for a Chelsea defender right now, because that's someone I can rotate in and out depending on whether or not they're playing a team I think won't score. But so keep an eye on Fofana. And also the impact he has on the team. That will be something that you will be able to track on things like Fantasy Football Scout. But yes, Ben Chilwell, let's talk about him. So he obviously is causing a bit of grief for Cucurella owners because Cucurella came off, Chilwell came on, got 2 attacking returns. And the thing is, it kind of makes you think, well, is Chilwell going to play more games? Is he going to start more games? What does this mean for Cucurella? We do have some quotes from Tuchel, so this is one of the handy things about having a look at the games in the immediate aftermath, because he was asked about this, and it does sound like maybe Chilwell isn't quite fit enough to start games yet, which might help you out if you have bigger fires to put out and you've got Cucurella and you're thinking, maybe do I give him one more week? So I'll just read out that quote from Tuchel. He says, I think he has full fitness you can have from training and pre-season matches. Of course, you can also feel fitter and be fitter with consecutive matches in the Premier League, which obviously he's not had yet. In my opinion, he lacks the rhythm and lacks a good feeling for the game. This is what I see in training. The player always thinks he's ready. I think there are still a few things missing. He started for us at Everton, came on against Southampton. He came on today and had a huge impact. This is what we want from him. The wing-back position is his best position, in my opinion. Gives a lot of energy, runs and delivery. So I'm very happy because these things happen like nothing else. Much more important than any training or talk with me is that he feels it and he experiences being back on the pitch and being decisive. So possibly 2 ways of looking at it. He's saying that he needs more time on the pitch, so maybe he'll get more time on the pitch. He's also saying that there's still some things that he needs there from Chilwell in terms of time on the pitch. Either way, probably what it boils down to is uncertainty, right? We hate that as FPL managers. When there is uncertainty about a player, is Cucurella the new Perisic? The player that we just don't know if he's going to play. And of course, if you don't know who's going to play and you don't know they're going to keep a clean sheet, well, I'd be personally be looking at getting rid of Cucurella, but appreciate that other people might have some slight issues going with that. If you've got other problems you've got to solve. One other thing we need to point out, if we're talking about Chelsea defence, Reece James got booked again, and that means he's just, I think it's now 2 more yellow cards is going to suspend James, so keep an eye on that. On the subject of their defence, the other thing to remember is that Mendy may or may not be injured. Now, this depends on how cynical you are. If you think that Edouard Mendy picked up an injury in that West Ham goal, then maybe you can read plenty into these quotes from Tuchel. If you think he didn't pick up an injury, which I think is most of us, but I'm not going to say one way or the other, then maybe we can just take this with a pinch of salt. But Tuchel says that Mendy was in a lot of pain. We have to see. It's too early to comment on it. I think he's at the moment a bit unlucky. In training, he's fantastic. He's in general very calm, very self-reflective guy who's aware that he lacks a little bit of luck at the moment. Things do not go in his favour. He has had situations where if it's not 100% clear because of his actions, he gets punished massively. He's just in this moment. It feels like it's not so much his fault. I have a feeling that he tries everything. He's very focused and we will keep on supporting him. So Mendy's in a bad patch of form. Could that be the reason why Chelsea aren't keeping these clean sheets, or at least can it be a factor? Because, of course, the defence still is part of the reason why they're conceding big chances. But if Mendy does have an injury, and that was a foul, although I don't think we think it massively is, then maybe Mendy gets dropped or given some rest to get back from his injury, and could that improve Chelsea's defensive chances? We will have to see. We'll have to see what Tuchel says in the week, basically, because we will hear from him again. One last thing just to say on this particular fixture, we should talk about West Ham, who I thought played very well in that game. I think, obviously, like everyone else, they deserve to draw that game 2-2, and that has absolutely nothing to do with the fact that I had 2-2 down as my predicted score on Super 6. Absolutely nothing to do with it. But either way, West Ham slowly edging their way into the season and starting to show a little bit more belief. Maxwell Cornet obviously looks very good. We kind of knew that already from playing at Burnley. And there's possibly some options there. It's kind of difficult to say who to consider, because obviously they haven't played that well yet, or they haven't played well for a consistent period. But it's worth pointing out that between now and Gameweek 16, if you sort the Fantasy Football Scout season ticker for overall fixture difficulty between now and Gameweek 16, then West Ham actually rank second. So if they do well in the next couple of matches, there's a decent run coming for West Ham. So we'll keep an eye on them. If anyone pops up, maybe Jared Bowen will finally be that 8 million midfielder that we're all supposed to have. We will have to see. Now, elsewhere in the Premier League, if we're talking about expensive defenders, let's talk about the cheapest of the lot. Neco Williams already alluded to his story of woe this game week earlier on, with the fact that he only scored 4 points because Forrest's defence is so shocking. But it's always worth just going into slightly more detail on some of this stuff. So it's further proof, I think, this game, that if Forrest can get their defence sorted out, then Williams is still going to be a serious asset this year. He's probably not going to be a John Lundstrom, because I think we can all agree that Sheffield United, when they first came up into the Premier League, their defence was looking significantly better than this Forest side was. Didn't have that much work to do, so it meant that obviously they could just get those clean sheets coming. And of course, they had, the same goalkeeper as this team, Dean Henderson. So come on, Dean. Let's see what you can do. But if they can improve that, which is a possibility, because obviously they've made so many signings, they've certainly got options, although it will possibly take time to bed them in. But the key thing really is just about Williams is that his attacking stats are still just insane. So he's top among FPL defenders for shots, as you can see from the table at the bottom there, with 13 after the first 6 matches, which is 4 more than any other. 7 of those have been in the box, which is the joint most. 3 of those have been on target, which I think is the second best. He's also joint third for chances created. So, this guy just does everything, which probably comes as probably no surprise, because, he was basically the understudy to Trent Alexander-Arnold when he was at Liverpool, and has continued that vein of form at Forest, and obviously gets more starts now. So, on Forest's defence, though, do we really need the numbers on this? Probably not, but it's always nice to look at them, I guess. The defence is terrible at the moment. And basically what we're looking at is they're a team that has allowed more shots than any other team. And, of course, conceded 3 goals against the side with the worst XG in the division as well. And the interesting thing about this particular game is that, obviously, Bournemouth scored 3 times, but their combined XG for this game was just 0.78. And so that just shows you the depths of despair that this Forest defence is operating at, purely because if you're going to concede 3 against a team of that quality, well, we've already seen what City put 6 past them. So, there's a serious problem right now with their defence. But if they can sort it out and they have a decent fixture, then starting Neco Williams, it's not the worst decision you could make, in my opinion. Although, Ali Boskurt says, no point going for Neco, in my opinion. You can get Fofana at 4.4, any Man United defender at 4.4. I think Dallo is 4.5 at the moment. Saliba at 4.8. Worth the extra for the huge uplift in clean sheets, not to mention the defence. Yeah, that's a fair point. I think at this point, yeah, it's a good point. I don't think I'd encourage people to necessarily sign him. I think there's a lot of people who already own him. Most of us have only had him since game week 1 because we had a bit of a feeling about him. And at this point, it's just when you start him and when you don't, basically. And I think that's just worth keeping an eye on. A couple of other things just to point out in the Forest game. Morgan Gibbs-White, I think, is now on set pieces, which does actually mean that I think Neco Williams isn't taking as many. Gibbs-White has played, I think, in out of position in a sort of forwards role, which is quite useful to know. And obviously got an assist. 5.5 million is not the worst, not the worst price. If I'm not mistaken, I think that Mark Southern signed Morgan Gibbs-White this game week, and I briefly considered it and then didn't do it. And in typical fashion, when you look at something Southerns does and then don't do it, that's normally when it comes off. And lo and behold, it did. Assist for him. Now, we talked about Bournemouth's XG. Now, I don't want to sound like someone who has lost their marbles, but when we were talking about the season ticker and the fact that West Ham have the joint second best fixtures between now and Gameweek 16, well, top of that list is Bournemouth. So, if you want to play the fixtures, maybe they're the team to look at. Now, I'm not really saying that with too much conviction, but I do just like to point it out. A couple of people have been considering Solanke, but what I will say is that he only had one shot against Forrest. And so if you're only getting one shot against Forrest, the team that concedes more than any other team, I don't really think we're going to be seeing Solanke get too many shots beyond that. So if you want to play the fixtures, maybe wait and see how Bournemouth get on. But my personal opinion is probably going to be that we're probably not going to have to worry about them too much. And of course, manager situation is something that needs sorting as well. Jay Fury says, what to do with Perisic? Unfortunately, today I don't have too many stats on Spurs. They're not one of the games that I have gone into too much detail on. Obviously, didn't start in the most recent game. Sessegnon played really well. And actually, you can see from these stats here that Sessegnon actually is the second highest for shots this season. I mean, I've got to say, right now, with Perisic, I mean, he's not someone I would probably want to own either. I mean, if I'm paying 5.5 and upwards, or around that for all defenders, I need to know they're going to start every game week. I need to know they're going to keep clean sheets. And yeah, Spurs, I think they've got a decent defence this year. I think they will keep clean sheets. But if the guy doesn't start, you don't get it, right? So it's just my personal opinion. I'm just me. I'm no one special. But James, I wouldn't own right now. Cucurella, I wouldn't own right now. Perisic, I wouldn't own right now. But yes, good man. Torsifa Rahman has made the suggestion that I've been thinking about. Dallo could come in. And, if I'm operating a big at the back right now, I think it's time to admit the big at the back, or at least huge at the back anyway. If you've got 5 big defenders, I think it's got to be time now to admit that's not working and get some 4-5s in, spend some money elsewhere. And Dallo does look like a decent shout. Obviously, United have conceded today, but they just look so transformed under Ten Hag. So I think, personally, that Dallo could be someone to be considering. He's someone I'm actually considering replacing Botman with, for example. So, yeah, worth considering him. Now, speaking of Botman and his Newcastle defensive colleagues, this is a game where I like to... I mean, people know that I'm big into goalkeepers. I think that about 3 years ago, I somehow managed to end up in a situation where making a goalkeeper transfer became like a David Munday thing to do, because I had 2 free transfers, didn't really know what I wanted to do with them. My team was looking in good shape, and I changed my sub-goalie for, I think, Wayne Hennessy, maybe. And it worked out. It was great, because a couple of weeks later, I was able to bring him in, and I had the perfect rotation 3 or 4 weeks ahead of time. So the goalkeeper transfers can make a big difference. And, of course, right now, we've got Ward is looking shocking. Ramsdale is in a lot of teams, and Arsenal aren't keeping as many clean sheets as we'd like. And I just love Nick Pope. I love this man. He's amazing. He's always a great fantasy asset, even if you don't like his price. And it just comes down to whether or not you feel like you're willing to pay that price. I remember when he started at 5.5 for Burnley, I think, would it have been maybe not last season, but the season before, and people were like, well, I don't want to pay that. And I was like, well, the thing is, I'd be willing to pay 5.5 for Nick Pope when he was at Burnley. Although I think that season they didn't do as well as we'd like. But historically, if you go back and you look at over the points tallies that Pope has got, in my opinion, he is the sort of goalkeeper who actually deserves to be priced at 5 million or above. Now, this is because when you look at goalkeepers who've historically been classed in that bracket, or, like the 6 millions, like your David De Gea's when United were they're a decent team now, but when they were more established, Ederson, Alisson, those sorts of guys, if you play in a team that keeps a lot of clean sheets but doesn't really allow many shots, you're just 6 points every week. Whereas Nick Pope will get clean sheets probably... I'm just going to pluck this number from the air, so don't shoot me down too badly. Like 3 in every 5 or 2 in every 4, something like that. Like that sort of regularity, but at the same time is getting loads of saves and loads of bonus across that entire period. Then he actually, in my opinion, is the sort of goalkeeper you would want to be paying that sort of money for. Now, obviously, I've probably talked myself into a position where if I don't sign Nick Pope for the next game week, I look like a fraud. But obviously, everyone's teams, it's got to work for your team. But if you are on the lookout for a goalkeeper and you look at Nick Pope's price and you think, like 5.1 is a bit much, well, think about what you're getting for that price, and actually, you're getting quite a lot. He obviously got a double-figure haul in Gameweek 6. That was his second of the season. This is what he does. Saves, bonuses, all over the shop, and then clean sheets as well. Now, some people will say they were a little bit fortunate in this game. Palace had like 30 shots or something ridiculous, but didn't actually... and Pope made 9 saves, but they didn't actually register a single big chance. And Newcastle aren't doing too hot for their big chances conceded so far this season, as in they're ranking quite poorly for that. But they have played City and they have played Liverpool, so that is going to skew it somewhat. And, I mean, the key here really is we have a look at these stats down here, which is XG prevented. It's one of my favourite, most underrated stats in the Premier League when you're trying to assess the ability of a goalkeeper. This effectively is a measurement of the chances that they've stopped. Nick Pope always does very well for this, so it means that if you are mildly concerned about Newcastle's ability to keep clean sheets, like this is the key. If you look at their defensive stats or you look at their defensive performances and think, I'm not sure. I don't know if I'm willing to pay that much money. This is the stat right here that shows it's worth the money. Sometimes, 60% of the time, it works all the time, right? He currently ranks second in the division for XG prevented plus. It means he stopped a combined XG of plus 1.8, and Pickford is the only one higher than him at the moment. To be honest, decent price there as well. But I think I trust Newcastle defence generally more than I trust the Everton one. So Nick Pope. In my opinion, perfectly priced if you want a goalkeeper that's reliably going to get you those returns. Because I look at most of the 4-5s at the moment and I don't really see anyone in the same bracket. Now, I know I've just obviously pointed out Pickford, but I think him and the Everton defence need to earn a little bit more of our trust before I start saying they're a good option. But, not the worst in the world. But yeah, Nick Pope. It's all about Nick Pope. Is one of my favourites of all. To be honest, if I was making one of my FPL teams of all time, easily would put Pope in goal, and I will fight anyone who wants to put a different goalie in. He's just, what a guy. That is all I have on the rest of Saturday's games, other than Liverpool we're going to talk about in the moment. So if you want more information on the games outside of these three and the Liverpool one, which we're going to talk about in a minute, then make sure you head to Fantasy Football Scout and see what else they've got in the way of scout notes in the next couple of days, because they will have everything you need to make your decisions. Now, speaking of decisions, the big one we all need to think about right now is what are we going to do with Mo Salah? The blank against Everton was frustrating for 2 reasons. Number one, because it was a blank and he cost so much money and people are still captaining him. So there'll be people out there who had a captain blank when Kane and Haaland returned. But really, it was about the fact that we barely saw him in the game. And historically, even when Everton-Liverpool games are tight, he still usually looks a lot more exciting than he did. And unfortunately, it does look as if we are going through a bit of a shift right now in terms of what we can expect from him in any given game. Now, what we've got on the screen right now is the Premier League sorted by shots on target over the first 6 matches. Now, anyone who's read articles of mine or watched videos of mine over the years that I've done this will know that shots on target is one of my favourite stats. And it sounds really simple and it sounds really basic, but if they're a player who's shooting on target a lot, they're shooting a lot and their shots are big chances and they're on target a lot, these are the players that are going to reliably score you goals. I mean, it's pretty simple, right? And Salah has obviously built his entire legacy as a fantasy asset largely on shots in the box and shots on target, because he's been competing for the Golden Boot every year. And to be 6 game weeks in the season and be in a position where you've got so many people ahead of him for so many of the stats that historically he's been good at, that is when you start to worry. So 14 shots in the box so far. It's not too bad, but we've got Diaz has had the same number of shots in the box as him, playing from fewer minutes. We've got Jesus on 20, Son on 15, fewer minutes again. Rodrigo, 352 minutes played this season to Salah's 540. 2 more shots in the box than Salah. Harry Kane, 16. Haaland, 24. What a monster. And in the same bracket, Mitrovic, 22. Lots of players outperforming him for that stat. And of course, they're all cheaper than him. All cheaper. Nuclear Atom's already straight in with Salah is gone for me in game week 8. I will transfer him out regardless what happens in game week 7. John Tyner said, I sold Salah for McAllister. Wow, what a move. Wow. And brought in Haaland finally for Greenwood. Wow, that's one hell of an upgrade. I mean, I think you won game week 6 because, wow. Salah to McAllister, that's a huge swing. Well done, man. Well, I mean, there we are. I mean, that's already showing that the impact that he can have. Now, I talked about shots in the box. I'm going to talk about shots on target now. This is where Salah gets even worse in terms of what we're used to seeing from him. So he's had just 5 shots on target in 6 games. That's less than 1 a game, which is just bonkers for him. And that means, and let me just count this up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 players. 14 players have had more shots on the box than him so far, and they include the likes of Ivan Toney, Gabriel Jesus, Solly March, who's in my team right now. Good man, Solly. We got Son, Rodrigo, Martinelli, Zaha, Firmino. Firmino, 341 minutes. He's got 4 more shots on target than Salah. It's crazy. Kane with 12, Gordon with 13, and then Haaland and Mitrovic doubling up at the top with 15 shots on target each. That's 3 times as many shots on target. And these stats were already sort of looking like that before the game week. And I know there was a lot of deliberation over Haaland versus Salah for the captaincy, but I'd never even looked at him. And I probably should have sold him. Like, you've got a 13 million midfielder and you don't even consider him for the captaincy. That's when you sell him, right? Well, I thought you might get something just based purely off the fact that he's Salah, which isn't really that quantifiable. But when I'm making my captaincy decisions, I look at the data and I never even considered Salah for a minute for captaincy. It was just between Kane and Haaland, who obviously, as you can see, are much higher on this list for shots in the box and shots on target than Salah. Both of them ahead of him for big chances as well. And they both got 9 points this week and Salah blanked. So at this point, it's getting difficult to say that we can really even consider Salah in the captaincy conversation. There has also been the discussion about his positioning. Now, I would have included a heat map on this because they've been all over the social media channels this week, and of course it's been in the media as well. Journalists asking Klopp this question because his heat map is really, really, really far wide, which is obviously very frustrating. But one thing that's important to remember actually is the fact that heat maps don't always include moments of the game when the player is standing somewhere and he doesn't receive the ball. And there still has been a couple of times when Salah has been in the middle. And interestingly enough, I think he's still in the top 5 in the Premier League for penalty box touches. So I don't think whilst I think we can if we can reach the conclusion that Salah is not got the same level of goal threat this year as he had in previous years, we can see that it's kind of unarguable from the shot data. I think that's pretty obvious at this point. In terms of his positioning, I would be loath to say that he has all of a sudden turned into a winger overnight. Just because, if there's going to be situations where he's in the middle and they don't pass to him, then that's on the rest of the team to sort out. And of course, Nunez is going to possibly cause an issue there because he is more of a recognised centre forward. Maybe he's going to take up that position. But Salah is still touching the ball in the box a lot. And the other thing, we should just say this, it's a little bit sacrilegious, isn't it, to have a go at Salah. The one key stat for him that has changed for the better is that he is currently top of the league for chances created. He's created 24 chances, so he's had 24 attempted assists, so you could call them, so far this season, which is the best in the whole division, which is crazy. The quality of those chances hasn't been amazing because he's only created 1 big chance, and conversely, De Bruyne has created 7. So, he's hardly a De Bruyne, but obviously he got 2 assists, I think, in the game before the Everton one. One of those was with his shoulder. I don't actually know. I might have to check with Opta whether or not him not sort of nudging it with his shoulder counted as an attempted assist. I'm not sure. So there's still the potential for some points there, but it is very, very important to just notice that there has been a shift in what to expect from him. Heike Nu has asked, does shots on target include hits on the post? It actually doesn't. And I should probably just point out that, obviously he's hit the woodwork a few times. Maybe he's going to get some of those inside the goal at some point. Shots on target isn't an exact science, obviously, because, as you say, it doesn't include that particular stat. But over the course of a 5 or 6 game week period, I find it personally quite useful myself. And of course, when you combine it with goal conversion rate as well, that's quite useful. I'm trying to think of their players who in the past who used to shoot loads and never score. I think Harvey Barnes was one of them. Harvey Barnes would have a lot of shots and they wouldn't necessarily always be on target. I think, what was he called? Forgotten his name now. Used to play for Sheffield United and Ipswich Town as well. David McGoldrick, that's it. He would get shots on target all the time, but they would be like P rollers, and then it would mean his goal conversion rate was really low, even when his shots on target was quite high. So, you do sometimes have to test these stats against a couple of others, but as I said, I'm generally a big fan. Things are changing for Salah, but that's not the only thing changing at Liverpool, because obviously the defence is a bit of an issue at the moment as well. Now, it's taken us ages to wait for that clean sheet. It finally came against an Everton team that doesn't really have that much of a particularly exciting attack, so we probably shouldn't be too shocked that it's happened. But I think it was the first one since the opening week, or they certainly haven't kept many clean sheets this season. I think it's just 2. Yeah, it's just 2 they've kept. And people are wondering what to do with Robbo. I think Robbo is a sell at this point, personally. Alexander-Arnold, maybe not. If we go back to, I'll see if I can pull it up again, the Nottingham Forest slide. Alexander-Arnold is still performing relatively well for attacking stats. I think he's also top for chances created amongst defenders still as well. So there's still some attacking potential from Trent, provided he can finish the flipping game, Jurgen. Come on. So I think he's slightly more of a hold. But if we're talking about Liverpool's defensive assets, we do just have to talk about the defence. And while their defensive stats there's no one stat that stands out for me. I think it's the combination of stats that just tells me that something is a bit not quite right with this Liverpool defence right now. Now, you have to sort of bear with me here. Now, there's 2 screenshots on the screen. They're from the Fantasy Football Scout members area. If you aren't a member, sign up. It's amazing. What you'll see is that Liverpool are second best in the division at the moment after 6 games for fewest shots in the box conceded. So that's just 36. Man City are the only team to be better than that on 23. Pretty used to this sort of layout, aren't we, after all? I mean, they're the 2 best defenders. 2 best defensive units of the last sort of 3 or 4 years in the Premier League. But now where this gets, I don't want to say complicated, but just, you have to do a bit of thinking here, is the big chances that Liverpool have conceded. They've conceded 11 big chances, which ranks them, I think it's 7th best. Or, I guess, something like joint 12th worst or something, because there's a couple of other teams that are level with them. Now, why this concerns me a little bit is you've got a team that isn't really conceding that many shots in the box compared to the rest of the division, but actually 11 big chances to 36 shots in the box basically means, roughly, my quick maths isn't as good as it could be, that's like 1 in every 3 shot in the box conceded by Liverpool is going to be a big chance, which is actually quite a high ratio. If you had a team that was conceding not very many shots in the box and also not very many big chances, you would say, well, that's a defence that's operating quite nicely. Conversely, if you had a team that's conceding loads of shots in the box and loads of big chances, then you can look at that and just quite very easily say that's a rubbish defence. I think Liverpool's defence is a little bit deceptive because it depends what stat you look at. If you look at where the shots are coming from and the numerical value of those shots, obviously not conceding very many, then it makes you think, maybe they'll be okay. But it does mean that if they go up against a team that does actually manage to pepper them with more shots in the box than usual, at the current rate of about 1 in every 3, well, I think it's slightly less than that because it's 11 of every 36 basically. I don't know. That just makes me concerned about Liverpool's ability to keep a clean sheet, really. And if Alexander-Arnold continues to not finish the game, or those around him don't deliver on the chances he creates, then yeah, I'm going to be seriously considering getting rid of him. Robbo is the harder one. I do appreciate that. I know I've been very unequivocal already in saying just move him on. Wolves obviously don't score too many goals, so I think maybe, but for all of that, they're probably going to be okay this week. But moving forward, I think if I was wildcarding right now, I don't think I'd have a Liverpool defender, personally, if I wanted to spread that cash. I think there's lots of options you can get to without going in there. I mean, if you feel like they can maybe keep some clean sheets from their fixtures, I don't know, you can maybe go for one of the cheaper ones, like Gomez, but I don't know, it's not that exciting for me. So, yeah, that's my current view of the Liverpool defence. It hasn't really been in solid clean sheet keeping capabilities for a particularly long time. I've had Alexander-Arnold because I like his attacking potential. But if Jurgen Klopp goes full Pep, then, that could potentially damage it. Now, speaking of Pep, we've already talked about Haaland's ability so far. I think the best way to describe him is actually less about numbers, because I guess the numbers are kind of obvious, so we'll go back to the minute. Watching him play football is like, and I've stolen this from Twitter, so I take no credit for this. Watching him play football is like watching a 15-year-old play in like an under-10s league, because he's just an enormous human being who just always ends up in the right place, and he barely touches the ball, but he always scores. And the question at this point is not whether or not you own him, is just, do we captain him? Do we trust his minutes? And well, let's look at the stats first, because obviously the minute stuff is a bit sort of ethereal, basically. But we can go back to my Salah slide, and we can just see that Haaland is just what a beast he is. So, 24 shots in a box, best in the league. He's had 14 big chances, which is, get this, right, 6 more big chances than any other player. Second for that so far is Mitrovic. I've seen a few people asking about Mitrovic. I'll come on to him in a second. I think, he's looking good for inclusion for some time, in my opinion. And then Haaland is joint top for shots on target with 15 minutes per XGI, because obviously he's had a few assists as well. Expected goal involvement every 66.5 minutes. It's incredible. Goal conversion rate 40%. In a way, we're not necessarily all that shocked, because we knew he had a lot of talent, but the Premier League he is just making mincemeat of. Whether or not he's going to play every week, well, the handy thing is we got European football coming up soon, and people might say, why is that handy? Well, it basically gives us a sort of half litmus test of whether or not he's going to start at the weekend, because if he doesn't play the European game, then you'd like to think he's going to play the Premier League one. And to be perfectly honest, I mean, even if he doesn't start, I feel like he'll come on, and the form he's showing, I think he's going to score anyway. So I mean, personally, I'm not that worried, and I think we'll see what happens in these European games. But I'm fairly happy to continue captaining him relatively regularly. I promised a bit of info on Mitrovic, and if you are prepared to bear with a slight brag, I had a chat with Teach Mode Andy, of course you'll know, on Twitter in the week, where he was wondering, is Mitrovic going to deliver against Chelsea, against Spurs and against Chelsea? Are they the 2 weeks where we just wait and see, and then past that, that's when we get Mitrovic? My reply to that was, I think he'd get returns against Spurs and Chelsea. At that point in time, Spurs were worst in the league, despite having a really good defence. They'd conceded more chances through the middle than any other team, which of course is where Mitrovic pays his mortgage. And that's where he's taken out a mortgage, is in the middle. And then, of course, Chelsea in a position where, third worst for big chances conceded. So he's already got his goal against Spurs. I think he will get a goal, maybe 2, against Chelsea, the way they're playing at the moment. So if you want Mitrovic, I know it's difficult to know which forward to sell, but I would be getting on him as soon as possible. I could maybe switch Jesus to Mitrovic. I maybe need to have a look at Arsenal's fixtures and Jesus' numbers before I make the final decision. But I think that's a pretty good switch. Mitrovic is looking in seriously exciting form. So that's my view on Mitrovic. So we have probably got about 5, 6, 7 minutes left. So wrong slide there. What I will do is take some questions. So I can see that we've got some questions already, so I'll dive into those. But if you have any questions about what to do for Game Week 7, then I will do my best to give you my opinion for what it's worth. Tuan Victor Chanel says, do you think Aubameyang will do any good? Well, if anyone has, as I said, if anyone's listened to things I've said on videos or articles I've written down for the years, I really don't particularly rate Aubameyang very much, and I never have. I mean, it was a fantasy asset anyway. I don't think he's like a terrible player, but what I always found about him was that there's lots of different types of fantasy assets, and I've already talked about the players I like. They're the ones who shoot a lot, and when they shoot, it's a big chance, and when they shoot a big chance, it's a shot on target and it's a goal. They're the sorts of players I like, with lots of consistency. I like them to have shot volume. Now, Aubameyang didn't really ever do that for Arsenal. He would be the sort of player who would have like 1 or 2 chances a game, and he was at one point ruthless enough so that he would have, like, when he had a chance, he was quite likely to score it. But as things kind of tapered off at Arsenal, it got to the point in the end where he was just not having chances and not putting them away. Then he played on the left. And, of course, that just really damaged his fantasy appeal. Even when he was a midfielder, I didn't really think he was really worth having. Now, that's what he's got to fight against, for me, to get back in my team. So he's got a lot of work to do. It's a new team. Obviously, they need a new centre-forward, so maybe he can crack it. But as I've said already, I mean, most of the problems, in my opinion, at Chelsea right now are in the defence. I'm not saying their attack is in a particularly bad way, but I really, really need to see several weeks of Aubameyang seriously pulling his sleeves up and proving me wrong before I go anywhere near him. We've got IR saying, how can I get access to this data set? Well, what you can do is if you go to fantasyfootballscout.co.uk, have a look at the top for members benefits. It will tell you all of the different things you can get from subscribing to Fantasy Football Scout membership. One of those is the members area, where you've got all that data where you can analyze it and sort it and any which way you like. So head over there if you'd like to sign up. It will transform your FPL ability, and I am someone who can absolutely, I'm testament to it. My best years as an FPL manager have always come when I've had Fantasy Football Scout membership and spent basically my entire life living in there. Ali Boskert says, Turkey loves David Munday. Well, thank you very much for that. I do apologise. I think you've been asking me lots of questions throughout the stream, how I feel Turkey will get on at the next World Cup, and I haven't really had a chance to dive into that. I'm not really sure at the moment. I tend to know nothing about all the other teams at the World Cup until we get to about a month to go. I buy World Soccer Magazine, and I buy just all sorts of other magazines with stuff from writers from all over the world, and I go in the space of about a week from being someone who knows nothing about any of the teams at the World Cup other than England to ending up knowing everything about all the teams at the World Cup. So I might be able to give you some more info on that, and there will be a World Cup fantasy, I think, and my hope, and I don't know for certain, is that Fantasy Football Scout will be covering that in as much detail as they always have in the past. So if you are excited for the World Cup, this is a good place to get your fantasy fix from it. What else have we got? What's your thoughts on Liverpool on a wild card? From Gareth Robinson. Well, that's quite an easy one for me, I think. I mean, I've kind of already alluded to my answer to that when I was analysing their defence. I think right now, if I was wildcarding for the long term, it's difficult to say I'd definitely do it because I'm not actually going to wildcard at the moment, and it is Trent. But I don't think I would have any of their defenders. Trent is the only one I would consider. I'd probably need to just double-check how he compares attacking returns-wise to everyone else. To be perfectly honest, I'm a bit of a coward. I would probably keep him anyway. But if I was trying to be objective and pragmatic about it, I don't think I'd have a Liverpool defender. I think if I felt confident enough that they would score goals, but not confident enough to waste 13 million on it, then maybe Luis Diaz. We obviously had a look in some of the stats and saw that he's not performing too far off Salah in terms of the underlying stats, and he's a fraction of the price. So he would maybe be one I consider. I mentioned in the first few game weeks that Nunez looked really good, but of course it didn't take him very long to go and headbutt someone. So I don't really know how much of a walking red card he is, and sort of slightly yet to see what we saw from him at the start of the season since he came back from suspension. And of course, with all those other forwards, I don't think there's room for Nunez. So, yeah, I mean, if I was wildcarding right now, I don't think I'd have too many Liverpool players in it. One Arsenal, maybe two, Gareth says. Oh, sorry. One Arsenal, maybe as well, I think he means. It doesn't mean two Arsenal players. Yeah, I think I'm with you on that. I don't think I want to be in their defence right now. Jesus is making me think maybe there's better options elsewhere. I mean, like the ideal forward line probably right now is like Kane, Mitrovic and Haaland, and it doesn't really leave you room for Jesus, and Martinelli still looks good enough really at a fraction of the price to be maybe your one Arsenal guy. What do you think about Man City squad after the Champions League starts? Can we expect some surprises from Pep? That's from Saad Bougan. Yes, I absolutely think we're going to get some surprises. I think that it is going to start getting really annoying owning Man City players. It's one of the reasons why I actually went for Diaz when I was just trying to reshuffle. I went Cancelo to Diaz, was I felt that Diaz just might get more minutes over the next few weeks. So, of course, they then ended up signing a new centre-back. And Cancelo is a beast when it comes to recovery. So, I mean, who knows, really? They've got lots of options in every position. I guess, yeah. I mean, you obviously probably got Haaland. And in the past, if they've got one centre forward, you go, well, maybe he'll play. But then, of course, they could do a false nine. But right now, they do have a ready-made replacement in Alvarez, who does look very good. Now, if he could be the Champions League striker, that'd be really nice, wouldn't it? Please, Pep, can you just play Alvarez in the Champions League so that Haaland can play every game? We'll have to see. But in answer to your question, will we see some surprises? Absolutely. I mean, even in his press conferences, he's at the point now where he's like, I'm not going to tell you who's going to play at the weekend. You can see then. So it's like, well, why do we even do the press conference, mate? So, yeah, that's going to be tricky. Shani Russell says, Gundogan or Gross for a Man United midfielder. Rashford and Antony looking nice. I mean, yeah, Gross's positioning has changed a little bit in the last few weeks, but the thing about Brighton is you never know when Potter's going to sort of tweak it a little bit to then play him in a more advanced position. So, I mean, if I had Gross right now, I think I'd probably hold him. But, I mean, Rashford, last few games, has looked very good. I'm still a bit nervous about United. I mean, I'm a cautious manager. I will always advertise that. I'll never shy away from it. That's how I play. And I like to just have a couple of weeks where I can feel confident because, I mean, even this season, you've only got to look at someone like Rodrigo, who the bandwagon lasted through. I mean, I was bigging him up, and the bandwagon didn't last very long, and admittedly got an injury, but he blanked in the game week before, I think. So, I mean, a couple of game weeks, I like to just see a little bit more. And what with certain teams anyway, Man United are definitely in that bracket just because they do look amazing, but I don't know. I still wonder if maybe they've got a couple of stinkers at them just because we've seen it before. For them to so quickly go from so terrible to so amazing, I don't know, just makes me worry that they could go back to so terrible again. So we'll have to see on that one. So if I had Gross, I do have Gross. I wouldn't be selling Gross right now. I think I'd give him one more week. And final question then, I'm going to take this from George Wade, who says, Walker to Trippier. Yeah, tricky one, that one. I'm not sure what I'd do in that situation. I mean, I've got Diaz and I don't want to move him on, but that is because he's one of the centre-backs who's going to play every week. Or at least I hope he will anyway. I mean, Walker gets into some attacking positions and he could have scored against Villa. And he's a decent price. I mean, it just depends on, you rotating maybe. Like, Walker strikes me as a sort of player who, if he doesn't start, then would he come on? I mean, we've got the 5 subs now, so it's slightly more of a danger than it was before. Yeah, it's a tricky one on that one. Trippier, I think, looks good. I've obviously waxed lyrical about Nick Pope, so I guess that sort of half answers your question in terms of what I think they're capable of. Defensively, I think Trippier is a decent option. I suppose, Trippier's going to start more games, isn't he, than Walker, and probably get more attacking returns. So, if we're being seriously ruthless, let's go with yes on that one. But if I had Walker, I wouldn't necessarily be itching to sell. So, that's my thoughts there. Now, before I go, I do just need to do my duty and remind you that if you enjoyed this video, then don't forget to give it a like. Don't forget to subscribe to the Fantasy Football Scout YouTube channel and hit the bell icon so that you never, ever miss a video. There's some great content on this channel, which I can say with impunity because most of it doesn't include me, and it all includes some really fantastic FPL managers who do a great job. Scoutcast on Tuesdays, you've got team news on Fridays, you've got deadline streams, you've got burning questions as well. Some fantastic videos. So if you aren't already subscribed, then what are you doing? Subscribe now and improve your FPL palette of options for videos every week. And I know I'm a broken record on this, but if you aren't already a Fantasy Football Scout premium member, then make sure you sign up. Jump into that members area, and then all of the stats that I've gone through on this video, you'll be able to have full access to without having to listen to me, which is always a benefit. So, make sure you sign up to that, and you will certainly reap the rewards relatively soon after you're going through those numbers every week because they are super useful. So, that brings this week's stream to an end. I hope you've had fun. Thanks everyone who dropped some comments in. I hope you all have green arrows next week. And I hope that the European football that starts this week doesn't cause you too much grief. And all I will say is just hold on to those transfers and see what happens midweek. So I will see you all next Sunday.